What's up, everybody? Welcome into the Next Pats podcast. I'm Philip Perry. Yet another edition of Next Pats coming at you from Radio Row. It's getting busy out here. A bit of a circus here on Radio Row in Phoenix before Super Bowl 57. But we wanted to hit you with a couple more great interviews from a couple more league insiders. Louis Riddick, friend of the podcast, phenomenal guest for us because of his varied background. Obviously, he was a player, but not only was he a player for Bill Belichick in Cleveland back in the 90s. Also a director of pro personnel in the NFL for years. Now, as an analyst, still has all kinds of insight on the topics that we want to talk about, which is team building. What matters more, especially for the Patriots this offseason, offensive line or wide receiver? And how about, what does he have on the Senior Bowl for us? Yes, we're going to do a little bit of draft talk because Louis was in Mobile, Alabama as part of ESPN's team down there for the Senior Bowl a couple of weeks ago. So great insight from Louis. As always, we're also going to be talking to Judy Battista, another friend of the pod from NFL Network, about whether or not these quarterback salaries that we're seeing thrown around in the NFL these days, and we may see Daniel Jones, for instance, get a massive one later this offseason, whether or not that's sustainable. How do owners feel about all the money that is being doled out to that position? Great chat with Judy, but first, let's get to our conversation with Louis. Very excited to have with us here on Next Pats right now, Louis Riddick, ESPN. Louis, thanks so much for being with us, man.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me.
I love being able to pick your brain on all things football, whether it comes to what's happening in the league, the college game, team building. Mm-hmm. One thing that we have been trying to dig into this week has been, from a Patriots perspective, this offseason, Patriots and their fans, oftentimes used to being in this game, but now we're already focused on the team building process. It looks like among the Patriots' top needs are offensive tackle and wide receiver. And I think that's a fascinating conversation in today's game. Everybody knows how important offensive football is, but where do you start? Which one matters more? How do you feel about that debate?
Look, I've always believed that probably offensive tackle was maybe number 3 on the hierarchy when you're talking about team building, that it would be quarterback, pass rusher, offensive tackle. And then, maybe wide receiver, corner, those would be the top 5. Obviously, quarterback has always been number 1 for most. I think the other 4, it's kind of debatable depending upon maybe what your team needs are, that people will fluctuate those. But I think those 5 positions, without a doubt, are the 5 that you have to have locked down solid. And then even, within those 5, I think some people would say, you know what? An interior pass rusher is just as valuable as an edge pass rusher. So it really doesn't matter where it comes, whether it's a 34 defensive end, a 43 base DN, or or 3 technique like AD or Fletcher Cox, or one of those kind of guys. You just need pass rushers. So, but yeah, I think as far as the Patriots are concerned, and as far as the positions you're talking about, you've got to have them, and Bill knows that. I mean, Bill's one of the guys who kind of made that popular.
Does it matter, or does it change at all, knowing who their quarterback is? It's Mac Jones, pocket guy. I was just talking to Steve Palazzolo from Pro Football Focus. Mac Jones, it was a surprise to me, ranked in the top 5 in terms of their grading system from a clean pocket. It's Mahomes and Burrow and Hurts and Trevor Lawrence, some of the best in the league. And then Mac Jones at 5, even though the Patriots had a down year offensively. So would that make you lean if you were, if you were in that Patriots front office, you're talking to Bill Belichick, are you saying, we got to get the receiver would be nice, but we got to get the tackle so that he can work for more of those clean pockets?
Well, sure. And you know what? I think, and even more so, I think you can see why, especially if you had foresight into the fact that Mac was going to be so good from the pocket, which you probably should have anyway, judging from his time at Alabama. You would maybe even go so far as to say, you know what, really build that pocket and build that offensive line inside out, which is why, look, people would sit there and obviously say, well, look, we're not going to argue over Cole Strange, but maybe where you picked him, we'll argue. But remember back in the days of Drew Brees in New Orleans, Sean Payton had that thing built inside out, as far as he had all the money really invested in center and 2 guards. I mean, at that time, it was Carl Nicks and Jari Evans, who were the 2 best guards in the NFL. And he had just average guys on the outside at offensive tackle because of the fact that Drew liked to just sit right there in that maybe 8-yard by 5-yard box and deal from there. So, yeah, I mean, obviously what you're talking about when you're talking about trying to draft an offensive tackle who's a stalwart and, in the grand scheme of the overall 53-man roster, that's probably where they'll go. But for sure, because of where Mac likes to live, that's probably where you're going to want to go.
What kind of ceiling do you think Mac has?
Look, I think Mac can be a top 10 to top 12 type of quarterback because of the fact that he has great processing speed. he has enough arm strength to throw the football both horizontally and vertically how you want. He showed that at Alabama. Look, the football field in college is the same length as it is in the NFL, so he can launch it where it needs to go. Obviously, I think as he gets older, his arm strength will improve to where those tight window throws, and maybe when he is not releasing it with the same kind of anticipation, he'll still be able to get there. So I still think he has a lot of growth yet to still really experience, both in terms of his strength and his football IQ, which is something that's always growing. Look, the guy who preceded him in New England, in Tom Brady, was learning throughout the entire course of his 20-plus year career. So I don't think we've even come close to scratching the surface for what Mac Jones can be. And I understand, now we're not really interested in allowing him to grow and develop. We want results, especially in New England, where, they're used to winning championships. So people are going to become very, very frustrated if he isn't putting up the kind of numbers and making the kind of eye-catching plays that some of the other young quarterbacks are making. But just tame it down a little bit because he still has a lot to go.
He does, and that was something that we heard from Kurt Warner. He said, I don't know if you're going to know anybody's ceiling until year 4.
That's right.
Year 5.
Yeah.
But the way that the contracts are set up for these first-round picks now, and you have to decide after year 3 if you're going to pick up that fifth-year option, did it surprise you that Bill Belichick handled his coaching staff on that side of the ball, and specifically with the quarterback, understanding that the window is limited when you have to evaluate and kind of understand who a player is by the end of year 3?
That, I will tell you what, of all of the years of being exposed to Bill and understanding how this guy dots I's and crosses T's and leaves no stone unturned, that shocked me. And that was something that right from the get-go, as the offseason progressed, I thought he has to have some kind of move up his sleeve that he's going to pull out as far as the offensive coordinator is concerned. He cannot possibly be going with Matt and Joe. That just is so that's just not him. And so when he did do that, I didn't think it would end well. I always gave him the benefit of the doubt because I've always given Bill the benefit of the doubt, and I think we all should. But when that didn't work out the way it didn't work, I wasn't shocked. My good pal and someone who I respect the very most, Steve Young, he said, Steve went so far as to say that's just pure hubris on the part of Bill, to where Bill thought, I'm so smart about this game. I know something that no one else does, which is I can take 2 defensive coaches and allow him to coach my second-year quarterback, which, it flew in the face of conventional wisdom. I was just a little bit shocked by it, but I think things will turn for the better this year.
Do you still consider him among the cream of the crop when it comes to NFL? There are so many great coaches in this league now. Andy Reid
Bill?
There's no
Definitely.
question. Look, I think the decision last year has shaken the confidence.
But you know
in
what?
Bill Belichick for some.
I'll tell you what. I'll say this. Look, I was listening to an interview today on CNBC with Bob Iger talking about Disney and talking about he was asked whether or not at some point in time, or someone made reference to the fact that at the end of his first tenure there, had he become someone who didn't listen as well as he used to early on in his tenure as CEO. And he kind of alluded to the fact that, the more success you have, the more you think, look, I can navigate my own way through this. I don't necessarily have to listen to everyone else's opinion anymore. Bill's a human being. I'm sure at this point in his career, he feels as though there isn't anything I haven't seen. So regardless of what everyone else is telling me, I can figure it out on my own. And maybe this year was a little bit of almost like, I don't want to say a wake-up call, but it maybe caused him to sit back and go, okay, look, I messed this one up. I'll fix this. I don't think it should be a cause for anyone to start knocking at the foundation of what this guy has achieved in the league. Because I can tell you this. He's been doing this a long time, man. A long time. And I know what he taught me. I know what Nick Saban taught me. I know what those two taught me together. And it still holds true in today's game. And look, you know this too. He has been at the forefront of innovating in this league every step of the way. A lot of the things that people are doing right now, he has been doing for a long time. It's just that now, with the advent of, look at this. With the media coverage that we have in social media, now all of a sudden people talk about stuff that he was doing 20 years ago, like, wow, look at what we're doing. No, he was doing that a long time ago. So no, to answer your question, he's still one of the greats of all time, if not the best.
A lot of people that know him well will tell you this guy is so adaptable. And I think he's shown that already. They go out, they had an issue, they've hired an offensive coordinator, they've hired an offensive line coach. So I think Patriots fans at home,
they'll be okay.
They'll be in a better spot
in
2023. I did want to ask you quickly about the Senior Bowl because I know you were there as part of ESPN's team down in Mobile, Alabama, and a couple players stood out to you. Again, let's talk about this tackle and receiver position thing again because that's where the Patriots are going to be looking. Jaden Reed, from Michigan State. This guy stood out to you, one of the best players down there as far as you were concerned, I know. What stood out about him?
Quickness, acceleration, separation ability. I mean, as far as the player tracking data that they were collecting from these guys, he was at the top of the charts damn near every day. As far as, his instant acceleration, ability to work inside and outside, create separation, made just some spectacular catches. And the scouts there were just enamored with how the objective data was matching up with what they were literally sitting there watching. And, being able to be down there on the field and watch these guys literally stand right beside them and watch them come off the line of scrimmage, whether it be wide receivers, pass rushers, offensive linemen, I could tell right then he's going to be a problem. And everyone else kind of could see it too. And even the players that went against him were saying, this guy right here is legit.
And then at tackle, Tennessee's Darnell Wright. We've talked about, Northwestern's Peter Skoronski, Georgia's Broderick Jones. These are among the best of the best, it seems like, in that position. But you like Wright. What did he show you at the Senior Bowl? Because, again, that's best of the best down there, and it sounds like he performed well.
He is flat out nasty. He is a big boy now. I mean, what is he? He's about 6'6", 320, 330. And he's got real light feet, real good in pass sets, real strong punch, real good redirect. He will just destroy you on double teams, combo blocks in the run game. And look, he was just toying with people down there. So what I did, as soon as I got home, I was like, look, I got to watch this guy against some of the best SEC competition. So you throw on an Alabama game, you want to see him against Will Anderson. He absolutely shut Will Anderson down. Will was just another guy. Will was a non-factor in that game down in Knoxville this year. And I was just sitting there going, look, man, they flipped him from left tackle to right tackle this past year after playing left tackle during his career. And there was no doubt that whoever thought about doing that, it took his stock from here to here. Because now people are looking at him as maybe when it's all said and done, being the guy who may be the best pro.
And we know the Patriots, they love their SEC guys. They love their Senior Bowl standouts. So that's a name we should all know, Darnell Wright.
Of
awesome.
course.
Louis Riddick, you're absolutely the best. We could talk to you for an hour, man. Thanks so much for being with us.
Absolutely. Thanks a lot.
All right, thanks again to Louis Riddick. A couple names there for us to dig into. For those of us that are already thinking about the draft, I'm loving some of the receiver names we're getting right now because it's not supposed to be the most top-heavy class at that position in the world, but whether we're talking about Reed or Zay Flowers or any other receiver in this year's draft class, I think there's going to be a lot to be learned about these guys and whether or not any of these guys are, say, worthy of a second-round pick. Could the Patriots be making back-to-back picks at that position in the second round in back-to-back drafts? Will be fascinating to track. All right, let's get to our conversation now with Judy Battista. We're talking about how the league is viewing the Patriots and where they are and where their trajectory is going for the foreseeable future, as well as this quarterback salary conversation that I think you're really going to enjoy. Here's Judy. Very, very happy to have with us now our good friend of the podcast from NFL Network, Judy Battista. Judy, thanks for being with us.
So good to be here, Phil. I saw you at the beginning of the week and then haven't seen you since, so this is awesome.
Well, you're very busy. You have handlers. You have... You do. You are big time. You're a superstar. I told you that's a superstar chair. We only have superstars on the podcast, so here you are. Thank you for spending some time with us.
It's so great to be here.
Are you noticing a lack of buzz this week for any reason? I do think you are.
Yes.
It also feels a little less, and I know we're in a COVID world. I hesitate to say post-COVID world, but 2020 in Miami, I talked to somebody yesterday. I think we had twice the number of media tables, like this one right in front of us, almost twice as many tables as we do this year. What, do you think that's COVID related? Is it the economy related?
Maybe the economy, not to get too deep into the weeds.
Is that contributing
to the
lack
business.
Of buzz, though, you think?
That's part of it. I think these two teams are, first of all, I think the Chiefs, in some ways, like the Patriots, are now so familiar being here that, there are not many new storylines to tell. I mean, the only thing we have talked about all week with the Chiefs is the state of Patrick's ankle, which was largely fine 2 weeks ago. So it's not like you've had any real developments. And I think these are two sort of buttoned down teams, which is to their credit. They know how to manage these things, but nobody is saying anything crazy. Thankfully, they're not behaving crazily. So yeah, I do think there's a lack of buzz. I think there are fewer people here. It just looks, the eyeball test is there are fewer people here. The other thing is, my guess is, yes, the economy is contributing to it. And next year the Super Bowl is in Las Vegas, and my suspicion is that everybody is preparing to blow that out since it's the first in Vegas.
If you had to pick one, maybe you'd rather go to Vegas as opposed to Phoenix. Although I love Phoenix.
I do too, and it's a great setup. It's fantastic.
Yes.
The weather's amazing. I'm
Right.
sorry to tell the folks back in the Northeast, but the weather has been amazing. It was 5 degrees when I left New York. So this is awesome. But yes, it's been quiet.
So Patriots, no strangers to buzzworthy Super Bowls for a variety of different reasons over the years.
Including one here.
Including one here. Yeah, that was an exciting one. 2014.
Yeah.
There was some investigating of the Patriots going on at that point in time.
And also the one against the Giants, right?
And the one against the Giants in 2007.
Right.
Yeah, there was
At
a
the end of the
fair amount of buzz that year as well.
There was some buzz.
So they're not here now.
Right.
They've missed the postseason 2 of the last 3 years. What is your view of the current state of the Patriots and the trajectory that they're on, understanding that it's a far different time for them now than it was, even 5 years ago?
Listen, I think, to be realistic, this had to be what you expected in the post-Tom Brady era, right? I mean, there are just not that many franchises that go from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers, and they have not won 6 Super Bowls with those two guys. So that just doesn't happen. And listen, Mac Jones's rookie season was really promising. Last year, I mean, let's just get to it, was obviously problematic. I think that's an understatement. I think the move to bring in Bill O'Brien is a good one that clearly needed to be remedied, the offensive coordinator situation. Listen, I give Bill Belichick the benefit of the doubt for everything. Like, if anybody can fix a football team, it is Bill. But, obviously, the expectation level in New England is so high, it's probably unrealistic. It's almost certainly unrealistic. I think this is how the other half has been living all those years, right?
Yeah.
Like, all those years that it was the AFC Championship game year after year after year. This is what the rest of the league was going through, trying to figure out the quarterback situation and trying to get back to the playoffs. After 20 incredible years, this is normal.
What's interesting is I don't think Patriots ownership feels that way.
Sure they don't, right?
I think they're upset about this. I wonder, and you're a great person to ask this question, do you feel like the rest of the league views this recent stretch for the Patriots as them getting their comeuppance to a degree? Do you sense any schadenfreude from around the rest of the league, looking at all the success they had and, understanding that they didn't necessarily make maybe a lot of friends along the way in terms of, I don't know, how they did business? Do you sense that from other teams or other owners?
I don't know if it's that so much as just sort of a feeling of like, welcome to our world. Like, this is what happens when you don't have the greatest player in history as your quarterback for 2 decades. You see other teams like, right, I mean, look, obviously I live in New York. Like, look at the Jets, like, who have been scrambling to find a quarterback since Joe Namath. Like, this is what happens. I don't know if it's just sort of like, you're finally getting it. It's more just like, welcome to our world. Mm-hmm. This is it. But having said that, I will say that every time the Patriots have a good game, even last year when they were clearly struggling, when Mac Jones would have a good game and you would think the immediate feeling was, this is it. They're going to get on track, right? You're so used to the Patriots getting going and figuring it out that as soon as you see the first sign that they do something good, you immediately think this is it. They're about to take off. And then when it doesn't happen, you're surprised that they didn't take off.
Different times at the quarterback position, especially, as you mentioned. Mac Jones on a nice, comfortable rookie contract salary for the Patriots right now, something I'm sure they would like to try to maximize a little bit more over the next couple of years as he remains, again, relatively cheap. Where do you view the quarterback market going? Because I think it's an interesting question now, especially looking at Patrick Mahomes, and he just did a massive deal with the Chiefs, but it's a very long-term deal, maybe take some of the sting out of it for Chiefs ownership. Is it sustainable? You're in New York. Is paying somebody like Daniel Jones, as an example, $35 million a year, is that where the league wants to be? Or do you see owners, coaches maybe too, but owners especially, because it's their dollars being spent in that way on what are, apologies to Daniel Jones and the Jones family, I'm sure they listen to the podcast, mediocre veteran quarterbacks.
Well, the market is driven, as you know, by the superstars, right? And you have no choice, right? Are you not going to pay Joe Burrow? Like, okay, because if you're not going to pay Joe Burrow in Cincinnati, everybody else will be happy to pay him.
What about those middle tier guys, though? Do you think teams will start to say, hey,
but
we would rather start over every 4 years with a rookie quarterback or a second-year quarterback that we drafted the year before?
I don't think there are too many owners. You just talked about this. I don't think there are too many owners who are in for rebuilding every few years. And there's no guarantee you're even going to get another mediocre quarterback. Like, if you think Daniel Jones is, just slightly above like the mid-level of quarterbacks, right? He had a very good year with Daboll this year, to both of their credit, but very good year. So if you think that's what he's going to be, there's no guarantee you're even going to get that. Just go ask the Jets, right? Who drafted Zach Wilson high, thought this is our guy long term. He had some good games, and now, right? I mean, this year was an absolute catastrophe, and they're starting over again. So I think there's the fear that, these guys just don't come along. It's hard to find them. And so if you think you have one you can win with, even if it is not the Patrick Mahomes level guy, but if it's the Daniel Jones guy and you think you can do enough around him to make you competitive, I think there's a reluctance to give it up because the next guy may bomb.
Might be worse.
Absolutely.
I would find it interesting if owners started to say, yeah, it's nice to have call Daniel Jones 15th, right? It's nice to have the 15th quarterback in the NFL. And maybe if everything else is right around him, we hit on all those gambles and all those dart throws, then maybe we're a 10-win team and we make the playoffs. But the reality is we're probably not winning the Super Bowl. So we would be okay with eating it, having a 7-win season or 2 to get into the top half of the first round and find our next guy who's much cheaper, as opposed to hoping we can scrape into the postseason and maybe make a little bit of noise, but probably not win a championship while we're doling out huge dollars for this guy who's just kind of okay.
I think that would be true if you knew for sure the year that you bottomed out and were going to have a top pick that there were sure things in the draft. And we just know that doesn't come along very often. Like Trevor Lawrence is not there every year where okay, this guy's going to be fine. And Joe Burrow, they just don't happen every year. I mean, let's face it, there were people who didn't think Patrick Mahomes was going to make it in the NFL, right? So, yeah, I think if you could guarantee, if you go all the way down and win 2 games, but in the draft, there's the guy, and you're going to get him, okay, you would do that. No guarantees, though. And I think very few owners are willing to just blow up a season or 2 seasons, because all you have to do is look in the stands, and when the fans don't show up, owners get very nervous, and they should.
And if you bottom out, I mean, again, look at the Jets. You could bottom out, and you could be bottoming out for a long time.
Right, absolutely.
Nice problem to have, though, if you're a billionaire owner and you're trying to figure out how to spend millions on your quarterback. Nice problem to have.
Yeah, and don't forget, the salary cap goes up. The revenue is flooding into the NFL.
We don't feel bad for them.
Nobody is counting pennies here.
Not even Woody Johnson.
No, everybody's fine.
Judy, great to have you, as always, on the Next Pats podcast. Thanks so much for being with us.
Great to see you. I'll see you next, probably, I don't know where. Oh, the Combine.
Let's do the Combine. See you there.
Awesome.
Always great to have Judy on Next Pats. Always great to have Louis Riddick on Next Pats. Always great to have you listening to Next Pats. If you could, would you rate, comment, and subscribe to the podcast if you haven't already? Maybe tell your friends to do the same. That'll help us just get the word out there even more so we can continue to bring amazing, next level episodes of Next Pats to you on a regular basis. Thanks so much for listening, guys. We'll talk to you soon.